If you're learning to set boundaries in relationships, take a walk with me. Some of the greatest and most difficult boundaries you're ever going to set are going to be with yourself. And there's definitely a time and place where you might need to verbalize your boundaries. More often than not, this is about you paying attention and observing. Do their words align with their actions? Does all of that align with your goals, your values, and your standards for a relationship with you? The pickle we so often get ourselves into is that we say nothing. Often think, oh no, this will change or it'll get better. We store it, ignore it, and move on with our lives. That is until it can't be ignored anymore. And you're forced to have a conversation. And that conversation can sound like, hey, I have something I want to share with you. Do you have the time and space for me right now? Or would later be better? That's just saying, hey, I recognize and honor that you may have some other stuff that's going on right now that you would like to work through, and that later might actually be better for us to connect. That's okay. Not everything has to be right now, right now, right now. And if you tend to lean more anxious, this is a great opportunity to practice some self soothing techniques. You might want to take a deep breath in and let it out. Then go for a walk. This might turn out that 7 p.m. on a Tuesday night with our phones down and the TV off is going to be better for that conversation. And at this point, you might feel super amped up, and I get it. You've been waiting to have this conversation for a while. So dim the lights, take another deep breath in, and let it out. In your best non-accusatory tone, hey, when you do this thing, I feel this. Feel unseen, unheard, unloved, or I feel small in your presence. And I don't want to feel that way around you. Sometimes I feel like I don't matter to you in the ways that I would really like to. Most people are going to feel shocked and be completely unaware that they were making you feel this way. You also want to be really careful with how much of your well-being that you outsource to other people. Often say things like, you make me feel this way, but it's really you feeling that way, not necessarily because of them. So slowing things down and taking an inventory of your own thoughts, feelings, and emotions in this moment can help you gain clarity on what it is that you're actually feeling and where it's coming from. They actually didn't do something that was super specific, but it made you feel an emotion that made you feel like you were 10 years old again. I recognize that if something is external to me and it happens and it makes me feel a certain way, that situation is probably bumping up against something that's going on inside of me. That can be my standards or my values or expectations, which is a really good thing. It's saying, hey, pay attention here to this. I love this next part because even when we share our truth, the other person might become defensive. They might become defensive, deny your perspective, and shift into criticism and ultimately blame. And then you might think, whoa, hold up. This isn't about you. This is about me. Like, what's going on here? And then you see it on their face. They're 5 years old having a meltdown because they had a critical caregiver. Right now, you're bumping up against a unknown core wound of abandonment. Then you're like, holy shnikes, I just totally learned something new about my partner. So then, with a kind and compassionate voice, you might say, I understand how this might feel like a surprise to you. I'm not leaving, I'm not taking anything away from you, and I'm not abandoning you. I do, however, want to improve our relationship, and sometimes we have to have difficult conversations. That's going to be really uncomfortable for both of us. I'm not being mean or changing the rules, but I do have enough self respect and self love to allow myself to express myself authentically. That's something that I would love for both of us to be able to share with one another. Because I know that if I don't share this with you, it's going to lead to resentment and contempt. And I don't want to feel that way about you. I understand that a lot of what I'm telling you is actually my own work to do. And I want you to know that I'm not blaming you, but I am honoring how I feel. And I want you to be able to do the same. If we're being honest, this can feel like a massive emotional hurdle for the other person because they never experienced this level of transparency before. And when they did, something was taken away from them or a relationship was ended. And even though that's not your intent, that can certainly be their perception or their experience of this situation. Because in their world, consequences were always a threat, and it determined whether or not they were going to get their needs met, which becomes a very lonely and isolating experience. It's not that they don't want love and connection, it's just that sometimes it can feel unsafe, especially when it feels like they're being scolded or that they have done something wrong and now they're in trouble. You might be thinking, yeah, but they're an adult. They're in an adult body. And most of the time, they are a very competent and capable adult until the relationships hit the fan. Then their little me pops up to protect themselves. And that's the work that you can begin to do together and separate, to fully integrate little me and to let them know that you have it from here. And you will hit a point in your healing journey where you no longer have to announce your boundaries to everyone. They just become part of who you are and how you show up in the world, and people will often excuse themselves when they know that they can't meet you where you are. That might leave you feeling confused, but understand it has nothing to do with you and everything to do with their own personal experience. And it's not a rejection, it's just a redirection. Remember, boundaries aren't to be used to change or manipulate the other person into doing what you want them to do. Those are your values and standards to uphold. So, what's a good boundary that you can set with yourself? That you're not going to date people who no longer align with your goals, your values, standards, and beliefs.